Hello and welcome to Business Exposed, the podcast which discusses the unfiltered truth alongside the reality and day-to-day life of owning a business. Hosted by myself, Alan McMillan, and Lynn McMaster. Today's guest is Linda Martin. Linda is well known in the property world for exceeding the ceiling price when flipping properties. Today we learn how she does it, along with how she's recently pivoted into more larger commercial projects, running her own property flipping workshops, and also balancing her job full-time insurance, managing large commercial property claims, as well as being a mum as well, thrown in the mix. We would appreciate if you could like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, and also if you could share with as many people as possible that you feel would benefit from the podcast. Also, if you could tag and share us on social media, that would be great also. As always, sit back, relax, and let's get right into it.
I still think that in this market, there's still so much competition out there, and people are willing to buy homes that maybe they would have turned their nose up at a few years back because they need a new kitchen and bathroom. But because we're in this chronic housing shortage, they've got to buy homes that need a bit of work. So they're having to do that. So again, I still think it's hard to find a good deal that stacks up.
Yeah.
So it's just, again, it's another layer of complexity when you're trying to find a project to work on.
Yeah, 100%. However, I think it's good that there is more people, and certainly we're speaking about just now, that are voicing this. There's not as many as there should be, but I think even if we're making a start on it, just to say, listen, this is not being negative, we're being realistic here.
Yeah.
And the person who wants to venture into this game has to take the realistic approach. Because you're also putting the wee 20-year-old guy who's going to go and put probably his life savings into property education, right, and leave himself with absolutely nothing left, right, to you owe it to that guy that he's going in with the right outcome, what he could be the right outcome to him, than the falsified outcome, and realise, hold on, this is not what I maybe thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think what you guys are doing is so refreshing because no one else does it. Because I think that you're not scared to have those, be shot down by other people too. Because you want to give that honest take and lift the lid on exactly what happens. Because especially in that property training space, not many people are willing to do that. Because I still think for a lot of people, it's just an additional income stream to sell that dream.
Yeah, 100%.
And the dream's hard. It's hard to go in at the beginning.
It's hard anyway at the beginning. I think it's even harder in this economic climate to make your deal work.
Well, I think to somebody that's coming in that's got no experience, like myself 18 months ago, who was sold that dream, which, I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to work, but it's definitely taken longer than I thought it was going to take. And there's been lots of lessons along the road, which you do learn as you go, because you can't possibly learn everything there is to know about property at the beginning. At the end of the day, the two most stressful things in life is getting married and buying a house.
Really? It's buying a house up there, is it?
Apparently,
Okay. I know moving houses. I did that recently.
Yeah.
I'll never do that again myself in a while.
Once you're settled, you stay.
Buying or selling probably, or moving. But it is stressful, and you're trying to do it on multiple levels, to try and earn a salary that you can leave your job at and plan for your future, for your pension, which we touched on earlier before we pressed record. So it is definitely a longer road than it's perceived. Yeah.
Well, listen, let's go back a wee bit before for what I think was with property journey started. So you were in, it was Australia.
Yeah.
You've relocated back to Scotland. Your previous career was in insurance.
Yes.
So where did the property part come in? How did you get into property?
All right. So it's property insurance is my background.
Okay.
I worked with Australian and New Zealand insurance companies for a long time, for about 17 years.
Yeah.
So I used to manage the insurance losses for everything from, leaking showers in the early stages of my career to large commercial fires and factories and industrial sites. And then I guess it was when I did my last sort of real big insurance contract where I was involved in the Christchurch earthquake sequence. So I was based in Christchurch, and it was pretty much like working in a war zone, actually. Like the city had been flattened, and so I was working with people in difficult circumstances, and it always came down to money. But it taught me quite a few things about the importance that people put on their own properties and how meaningful it was to them.
Yeah.
So when I came back, I thought, okay, I want to really do this property piece well. So for me, it was no longer about being a developer, making money. It was about offering something, showcasing a property and giving, almost like giving back a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something you do really well, because I seen you speak last year at one of the auction house events.
Yes.
And to be fair, it's funny because I was also thinking this as well the other day, that people don't realise the impact that you have on somebody else's life through a kind of untoward way, because some of the things I've done in my recent renovation was a lot of the things you spoke about at the auction house event, and it was quite refreshing to hear that the kind of education I had before was like hammered down on this cost of the refurb, and you kind of went slightly almost the opposite and saying, well, listen, can I spend a wee bit more money in this? I remember you really pinpointing on the photography, saying I get my own photographer and everything as well. So the detail you went, cost probably more to get that result, but overall the bigger picture was it was a better result, which I thought was quite refreshing to hear. Because I said before, I've been told listen, you need to have that refurb down to a T, right, and then have a contingency and all that. But so it was quite refreshing to hear the kind of strategy may change as well as we were going along with the project. Yeah,
definitely. I think where a lot of developers fall down is they just focus on how much something is costing, and they're interested in keeping the budget as lean as possible, and that's how they'll make their money. And I'd like to approach it completely differently. I said, no, it's what your product looks like at the end of the day, and so doing everything you can to bring the best thing to the market. Yeah.
I think as well, again, I think I took from you is that you were going on about who is the end user, and thinking of a lot of the things that you're going to put in place is to benefit the end user and providing housing for somebody, which is again refreshing, because you're thinking about the person and the final product as opposed to just the bottom line number of the project, which again, back to what we were kind of talking beforehand with the social media thing, is a lot of people are talking about this deal made me this deal did me that, but what did the deal actually do though? Did it provide a really nice accommodation for a family that never had it before, and so on and so forth? So there's a lot even behind what you've actually done, a lot of spinning plates than just that bottom line number, profitable or not profitable.
Absolutely. One of the hardest things I found when I've been renovating property is when, and I always like to carry out my own viewings, and just for a bit of sort of intel, bit of market research.
I would agree.
And I don't think there's anyone that could sell a house better than someone who's worked on it themselves, spent so much time there and so
Definitely.
on. And I would always have lots of people come through the door to obviously view the house. And because I was doing all the views, I knew we'd chat to them, we'd find out their situation. And I found it really tough because I knew there was only going to be one lucky winner. There was only going to be one person that's going to be successful in buying the house. I was going, and there would be 15 unlucky parties. And a few years back, obviously these were the type of numbers that I was seeing coming through the door. And it was just really tough because it's as we touched on at the start, buying a property, buying a house, especially when it's your own house, is a really stressful and emotional purchase. And there can only be one lucky winner at the end of the day.
Yeah. Touching on the property side, and also trying to step away from corporate, but also understanding that property is not a consistent level of income.
Yes.
How have you navigated that?
It's a really interesting question.
Give us a really interesting answer.
Yeah. Okay then. How have I navigated that? So I've had my own business for a number of years now, and my personal circumstances changed a couple of years ago. So I separated, and I'd found obviously having to go from two incomes coming into the household to to one and then my own expenses, quite a challenging financial piece to have to deal with. And I guess that I got scared because I didn't want to rely on my property income as my only source of income, which I had been relying on for a number of years. So I've actually done things maybe now the opposite way or differently to what people might expect. So I've had the corporate career, then had my own business, and now I've gone back into the corporate space. And I'm now managing both my own business and a corporate role back in insurance. But I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an awful lot to manage. But again, because it's all property insurance, for me, I feel like I don't have to, I'm not working.
Right.
That's how much I enjoy it.
Okay.
And I'm able to use all of my property development skills again in the insurance space, whether I'm costing jobs, I'm working out how we put a house back together, a building back together. But the only difference being I'm not using my own money, I'm using the insurance company. So I'm responsible for the insurance companies, which is much easier.
Yeah.
And you're getting paid to do it.
And I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
And I'm,
well, you've got that steady income
100%
coming in all the time.
Yeah. And especially when you have your young children as well. For me, that was probably the one part of working for myself that was causing me the most stress, because the uncertainty of not having a regular income. Okay, it's not as lucrative as maybe what doing multiple flips can give you, and the large chunks of income and profit that flipping houses can give you, but there's a lot to be said for not having to worry about money month on month.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's where I'm at just now.
Yeah.
I especially at a time where I think flips are quite hard to find.
They're hard to find. Lots of people that I speak to who still have different interests, in the market, whether they're a solicitor, a estate agent, surveyor, whatever, a builder. It's fair to say that over the last 2 to 3 years, what with material and labour increases, margins again have been squeezed by, or have increased by, costs rather, have increased by about 30%. So you've got your material and labour increases, then with your barriers to entry, your high taxes, LBTT, everything is, I would say, there's more against you than for you. It's hard saying that, but that's just the facts.
That is the reality of it. And again, I don't know if you agree or disagree, but everything you've just said there is not related generally to the property specifically, because in my opinion, it's only my opinion, I don't think there's a shortage of flips out there in terms of the actual project, right? But by the time that you found that, the bottom line is, right, what you're doing, you're buying a rundown home and turning it into a really nice home, right?
Yeah.
There is a lot of rundown homes out there, right? But there's a lot of them that you do and you go, that would be a great project. But by the time you've just added in everything you've just discussed there, it's now not a deal, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And the thing that's a shame is that the property's still continuing to be run down and derelict, and is only going to get further and worse, and whatever the owner may be, situation is going to get worse, and there's somebody like us who actually want to pull them out a hole, but because of all the things you've just described, it's just not viable.
It's not financially viable. And I still have this, I'm still actively looking for projects, and there's a few things I've got in the pipeline, but there are the ratio of properties that don't, and deals that don't stack versus the ones that do, we 10 to 1. Whereas it was never like that before. You could kind of pick and choose, whereas nowadays you just can't. And you're absolutely right. It's so sad because in this chronic housing shortage that we have in this country, more incentives should be given to us so that we can bring these properties back to the market.
Definitely.
But I've been banging on about this for years, and it falls on deaf ears. And I know lots of other people do too. So keep hoping that one day the government will wake up, but we'll be waiting a long time.
I think I would agree. I would love to say I think it's going to happen sometime soon, but I don't think to me, in my opinion, until there is somebody who's run the country who's from a business background and understands the difference of profit and loss and so on and so forth, and not a political aspect, I don't see it changing anytime soon.
No, they should be chewing our hands off right now.
Absolutely.
And the current state of the country's in. Just even the towns that you're going through, they look dreadful.
Yes.
You know, and you're trying to encourage people to be coming to your country as tourists. To see what?
I know.
We've got a couple of castles.
Aye.
And that's not me slagging off Scotland. You know, it's an absolutely stunning country, but what actually have we got to offer? And they're driving through these places that are shameful.
That's right. And then what with, you know, the introduction of all of the short-term licensing as well, which has just driven prices up and making it even, you know, more unaffordable for tourists to come to the country. It's not ideal.
I would agree. And the thing is, my main business predominantly is short-term holiday lets, and how do I put this? That I think some of the prices that I need to charge per night shouldn't be as high as they are.
Okay.
But the reason they are is because there are other costs that are involved that come into play with that. If that makes any sense. I mean, they're still viable. They're still affordable to anybody who wants to stay them. But sometimes I think to myself is that if some of these costs were maybe eradicated, then, by the way, I don't know what your opinion is. I'm all for the license on the basis of like a health and safety risk, because I think prior to the license, I think it's terrible that somebody could actually offer somebody to stay in their house or whatever that situation looked like that wasn't regulated in any way, right? And if you're going somewhere with your children or your partner or you're single, whoever you're going there with, you have a right to know that place is safe. So I do believe there's regulation there. But listen, I know firsthand about it, right? Because obviously you know quite a bit. But I'm in the process of being taken to court right now over these licenses, and the whole thing is in my opinion quite a joke, to be fair. But the thing is though, the way it's happened is it's all at the cost of the taxpayer. So everybody who's involved in this process here of me getting taken to court over this is all funded by the taxpayer. The judge on the day, the council who's been represented beforehand, everybody. And where is that cost going? That cost going to somebody, i.e. the taxpayer, through whatever form.
Love to have a chat with you afterwards about that, because that, you'd need to talk completely.
I was going to say that, right? I was going to say that, right? I'm hoping the final case is in 2 weeks' time, so I can't hear any of this just now, right? Because it could jeopardise the licence, but it's definitely one for off air. To put it the long and the story short, I've been told by the council, right, that this is what the situation I'm in has never happened before. There's been the objection periods, people object to get taken to the tribunal, that's fine, but it's never been escalated as far as it's going to be. But that's one for this this camera anyway.
Definitely tell Gillian that one.
100%.
So when you first started your journey, did you find it quite lonely? How did you cope with the mindset of it all and keeping going when times were hard?
Okay, so I wouldn't say I felt lonely at the start of the journey, because I was completely wet behind the ears and naive as to exactly what it was going to be like. It was probably, I don't know, a good 6 months into things where I thought, oh, actually, this is maybe not all it was cracked up to be. So, and obviously having gone from a corporate background where I was part of a very busy office, and you know, there was people who would do your admin, there was your marketing team, there was the HR function, there was the finance department, there was legals who could help you. If you had a question, you knew you could go to someone and have the answer. You just had to focus on the one piece of your job that you were good at. And then when you're immersed in the world of self-employment, you know, you are it. There is no one else.
You've to answer all your own problems.
You are all those departments.
Yeah, you are everything. And when for me that was I found lots of things difficult, actually. Even something from maybe managing a simple Excel spreadsheet. Well, I would have given that to my admin assistant to do, you know, because that wasn't a good use of my time. So when you then have to do everything, I was like, holy moly, this is tough. And then, so it takes you 3 or 4 times as long to get a small task done.
So
when I was probably the first year, I reached out to, it was Business Gateway. So it was a service, like a kind of enterprise business group offered by Fife Council. And they were fantastic. And they said, okay, we'll sort of get you set up and provide some training with you. And I was with, it was just for women only, actually. And it was another group of maybe 15 to 20 women. Some I still keep in touch with today, actually. And we were all sort of in the same place. Right. And so there's a lot of support came that way. But self-employment is a very lonely place. I found that I would see myself like having conversations at the builder's yard with a guy behind the trade counter because I hadn't spoken to anyone in days. I was probably the last person that he wanted to have a wee chin with. He would just want to get on with his job, but it's because there was no interaction. And it was just me, or it's me and obviously the tradesman that I was working with. And I think too, when you work for yourself, what I found was a lot of your friends as well are just not interested in what you do, or didn't want to ask the questions. And I still don't know why that is, but I think that some people are quite envious, especially when you start doing well and they see your success, and they're envious of what you're doing and what it's all about. Whereas, if you worked, I don't know, anywhere else, back in the corporate role, people say, how's work going at the moment? And they would say, but when you work for yourself, no one asks that.
You're right.
Still, and
it's a strange kind of place.
Yeah. And then I remember specifically, I was at a barbecue and it was, nice summer's day out in the garden. And I told a friend of mine how my week had been. She's like, what you been up to? And I said, I had a flip that's just, been sold this week. I'm really excited. I've made like 65 grand or something on this flip. And I was like, you could have heard a pin drop. And then she turned the other way. That's good. And then turned the other way.
I would have been like that. How did you just make £65,000? Like, you need to tell me, what did you do there?
So I was wanting to share it with her because I was so happy. But that was what it was met with. Because people just didn't want to know.
That's all. I suppose there's an envious, potentially jealousy. I mean, I don't know the circumstances, but just taking it as a broad brush. Maybe if you told her, maybe if you told her all the problems, it might. She'd
be like that. Yeah, you're welcome to your 65 grand.
I know exactly. But they're just not. They're not really interested.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really weird that I'd be like yourself. I'd be wanting to get to the bottom of it and asking questions and saying, how did you do that? And can you teach me?
It's funny what you said there. I mean, on a much smaller scale, but I remember when I was in the motor trade as a salesman, I can't remember the incentive, but it was like if you sold so many cars within the year, you got a £5 grand bonus in the top of your January wage. And then that was obviously always a good month in the trade anyway. So if you done that and you got the bonus, your January wage was like a phenomenal wage. And I can remember the general manager at the time was a guy, Scott, really, really nice guy. In fact, he's out in Australia now, actually. Really, really nice guy. And he presented me with this. One of the mechanics kind of had heard that this is what my wage would have looked like, and apparently kind of wasn't too happy about it. And he just took them in and he just basically rhymed off all the things that you need to do. All that background stuff, your background of the 65 grand, right? Well, you want to work 7 days a week, right? 12, 14 hours, tell your missus you're not going to be home when you've this and the date nights planned, you don't see your kids. You just read them off and he went, see when you've done all that, right? I'll give you £5 grand. And the guy just went, oh no, I'm all right then. So see when you see it, so it's like see when you see the 65.
I know. And I guess part of me, when I said that, I remember specifically having that conversation, when I said that, I thought it was almost, I just wanted to see what the reaction would be in a way. And I know, that was a great result for me. That's
a phenomenal result.
But again, money does funny things to people, I think. It's just... I don't have all the answers when there's no right nor wrong way of how you should sort of conduct yourself when it comes to
opinions-based type kind of
money and so on. And I think a lot of it will come down to that. We spoke before about wealth and the perceptions of wealth, and I think too in our culture, speaking about money, it's not the done thing. It's something that I think we're probably brought up to not talk about. And I see even too, because I remember, excuse me, I put a post out on social media. Well, it's actually, so the lady I was working with at the time put the post out, and there was mention to, again, money that was being made. And it was even my mum said, "Oh, you shouldn't really be saying that."
Yeah.
You know, like, well, why not?
Yeah.
You know, if someone else was doing really well, you'd want to, you know, be tapping them on the back and say, "Well done," or whatever. But it's just, why can't we share the good and the bad?
Yeah.
But people are maybe more interested in hearing the bad stuff, rather than the good stuff. I mean, I'm very much about keeping it real.
Yeah.
But so it's a very difficult one to navigate.
Definitely, because on one hand we're saying we need to be real, but on the other hand, I suppose everything about it is real as long as you're being consistent and sharing both stories. But there's definitely a cultural aspect, because I was talking to a friend, I don't know if you know him, Improperly Gordon Dutfield, and I was talking to him a few weeks ago. He's out in Dubai now, and he said he's been in 18 months. He's like, I wouldn't look back, right? And I said, for what reason? And he went, for a cultural reason. He says, because if you're over in Dubai, he says the reason there's so much success, right, is because it's promoted. He says, so if somebody goes and buys a Ferrari, oh, congratulations, right, you must be doing well, blah blah. Somebody drives a Ferrari here. Some people, it goes on the motorway, people think, oh, arsehole, or
you cock,
exactly. That's a better word. That's a better word. Do you know? Whereas that wouldn't happen over there. So there's a cultural thing. So there's a I don't know how you've deemed so on. There's a lot of different moving parts as to success, promotion of success, and also keeping it real as well, and also that jealousy part as well. Because I don't know why, but in the UK it's kind of a thing that is like people don't want to see other people kind of do well. I don't know why. I couldn't think anything better, because it goes back to that thing. Who do you surround yourself with? I would rather be surrounded with successful people, because there's a higher chance I'm going to go on that path as well. Exactly. If you're bringing these people down, it's probably not likely to not going to happen.
No, that's a good point.
It's a whole cultural thing, isn't it? It's the same as we like to tear people down. Yeah. You know, more than celebrate the successes across the board. Definitely. Yeah.
I mean, she going back to what you kind of mentioned there about when you've set up your own business and you've now became like every single department, right? What's your opinion, not just talking about property, but just in business in general? Because there's a lot of people, again, going back to what you see in social media, not just property, but there's a lot of people now, right? I mean, I seen a guy the other day I came across on TikTok, and this guy's like, I don't know, it was an astronomical amount of followers, right? And he's cleaning wheelie bins for a living, right? And he's showing everybody what he does day to day, cleaning wheelie bins, right? So not just property, but in a general business consensus, right? What do you think the element of risk is? Because there's so many people who are in their job, like corporate or whatever their job is, and they're seeing a lot of these people having success on social media and think, right, I'm going to leave my job because I don't know, give me an example, right? I'm a great barber, right? I'm an award-winning barber, so do you know what? I'm going to open my own barber shop. But they realise when you open your own barber shop, you're now not the barber.
Yeah,
you're everything else as well.
You're the barber, but you're also
everything else. You're everything else as well. So do you think there's any kind of, like, I don't know, what's your opinion on, like, if you were giving advice to somebody to say, listen, whatever it is you do and whatever it is you're passionate about, because there's a confusion between passion. You can be really passionate about something, but it might not be a viable business model. And there's a fine line between making sure, because you definitely need to be passionate, as you said there. You're still working in your corporate job, but you don't feel like you're working because you're passionate and love what you do. I was in a slightly different position, because when I started my own business, I was doing the same, and I was running the two of them side by side. And the reason I went going full time was for the opposite reason, because I came to absolutely hate what I was doing. Whereas you definitely be passionate, but I mean, I don't know, what's your take on, like?
I think passion will make your day-to-day easier, but it's not going to put food on the table necessarily if it's not bringing money in, because, to be in business is to make money. And so you need to obviously cover your own costs and expenses. And if I'm assuming you'd be drawing a wage, so you need to cover all of that and what your job would have given you, as well as having the capital in the business, as well as the cash flow, as well as the buffer put aside for the lean times. So I think it's probably... is anyone sort of heading into the path of turning your passion into business should be very aware that you do need to have all these little pots, I guess, of money put aside, so that you have that buffer, so that you have the cash flow to succeed, because cash flow is a lifeblood blood. It's the blood of your business. Without it, it's going to dry up and pretty quickly.
Aye,
definitely.
Especially in
definitely property.
I was going to say that. I was going to say the same. Especially in property, one thing doesn't go your way, which can 9 times out of 10 be out your control. You can have all the strategy and all the planning, but a lot of the other stuff is out with your control potentially, which, as you say, impacts your cash flow, and that can dry up very, 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 very quickly.
Exactly.
I've just had one which has just been downvalued, right? And you probably won't even believe, you go, so how's this even happened? It's been downvalued by 40 grand, and it's not even it's an issue which is an offline conversation, which is to do with the surveyor. Kind of made a potential maybe mistake on something, but then the lender will only accept one valuation on it. And so the bottom line is, this is the situation, right? The situation is the situation, right? So ultimately, when I was going to refinance it, I had a plan for like a lot of that money elsewhere. So, but I've already committed to this other plan, so I now need to find some. So there's a lot of moving,
parts.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, no, that is sad, and it does just take one deal to take you under.
Yeah. 100%.
Have you been in that position yourself, Linda?
No, I haven't actually. Thankfully, I would say I'm quite, and maybe this is the insurance background, but not risk averse, but knowing how to manage it. I always have like the plan B or the plan C.
Yeah,
and I will never take on anything too risky. I mean, I read somewhere that the 2 reasons why people fail in business is because they either try to grow too quickly, or they take on something that they're just not experienced about. And maybe touching back on your point then, how does someone sort of navigate that space when they've got a passion, they're trying to then, make it evolve it into a business. Yes, you can be very good at what you do, but unless you have experience and all those other components that come with running a business, like how to manage your tax, your VAT, if that's appropriate.
That's a lot of the stuff that does put people under.
Yeah, all that, you do need to be able to spin all those plates at the same time, as well as having your day-to-day time side to do whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're cutting hair or a barber or whatever.
I think the tax thing is really an important point, because there's so many moving parts to the tax. Then if you don't understand that, then that could potentially, I mean, like there's so many stories, and we've all heard about this, whether you're in business or not. You hear somebody saying like, I just get a 20 grand tax bill through that I wasn't expecting, right? Well, well, you should have expected that. So it was actually really like, how do you not know that was coming? So it was really down to the knowledge of like managing your cash flow and what's taxable and vatable and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a lot of, you need to be really knowledgeable in very different fields, and if not, you certainly need to have the right advisor to keep you on track, because I never really understand how that happens, but I kind of think that's the only way it could really happen, because you're not accounting for things correctly. But you've obviously mentioned growth there as well. How many flips have you done now? I know it's excess of 50.
50 something.
So that's a lot, right? Yeah. And how long you had the business for?
About 10 years
so
now.
There's quite a lot of flips within that period of time. How do you grow? 'Cause it's something we were talking about last week. Is it how do you get that growth when generally the property world transacts quite slow between solicitors, conveyancing, builders, all the moving parts? It generally works, as I said, my background, from my sales background, is a lot of quick decisions, and everything happens very quickly. But then you move into the property space and you realise it doesn't act as quick as I thought it was going to be. So how do you kind of manage multiple flips and multiple projects when things don't tend to move generally that fast? Yeah,
so I actually see that the pace, albeit relatively slow, as an advantage, because you have time to plan, you have time to think about things, design your project, and then get all your ducks in a row, so that when you are ready to start, you can move forward and feel organised and not stressed out and know what you're working towards. I mean, property in itself is obviously a very slow moving asset compared to other asset classes, your stocks and shares, where obviously you have spikes up and down very quickly, and property prices do tend to take a lot of time to obviously reduce or increase, despite maybe what the newspapers might tell you. So again, sort of using that to your advantage, where you can where flips are concerned, obviously, so long as you're buying and selling in the same market, you can be pretty much guaranteed what and be able to work out what your property should realise. But when you come to sell, where I see people actually fall down is where they've maybe taken 2 or 3 years to renovate something. Meanwhile, the market has changed in that time. And if it's gone backwards, then they wonder why they've made significantly less than what they had initially thought they might. But to maybe answer your question more specifically in terms of how you sort of plan for multiple flips, I mean, for me, it's always come down to a sort of a funding point of view where you can utilise, the products that are specifically underwritten for flips, so short-term bridge and finance mainly, and then sort of leverage from that. And again, you're touching on, using experts in whatever particular field to advise you. One of the things I've always been sort of clear on everything I've been doing is I don't like to accept second best, and I like to work with people in the top of their game. So whether that's solicitors, finance brokers, estate agents, surveyors, that type of thing, so that you can get the good advice. Because even if you are maybe working with a solicitor, doesn't mean to say that they're any good. I just use solicitors. We're not saying all solicitors, right? Thank you. But it could be anyone. We're all human at the end of the day, and you get what you pay for. And people can give you the wrong advice.
I think as well in a world where regulation is changing so quickly, legislation is changing so quickly, then even these other professionals just keeping on solicitors, for example, they're having to try and keep up to date with their knowledge. I mean, I know certainly last year I was misadvising something, and it wasn't the solicitor's fault. It was just so happened the timing of something changed, and it wasn't by any means the solicitor's fault. But there's so many moving parts. Everybody's trying to keep up.
And what's right for you is obviously, I think, what only right at any given time. We all have lives, and we have, our circumstances might change. Our kids might, obviously, kids get older. Your financial needs change. You might be going to university. We have aging parents to deal with. All of these complexities of life, I think, will determine what's right for us at any given time. And I think having that ability to adapt to your personal situation or what the market might throw at you at any given time, it is really key. And it's having those reflecting on your business rather than always working in it, to make sure that you are keeping in tow with what I've just said there. I mean, and for me, that there was an intentional shift probably about 5 years ago, just sort of coming out of COVID, actually. It was the only time that I've ever cried about my business. And it was when I'd been working so hard to build something, and things were in a great place, and I'd taken on staff and I was managing 3 flips at any given time. I had this, real tight team of tradesmen. We were all working really well together, making really good money. And then I had one project we were about to work on. I had 3, I think, coming to the market between January and March 2020. And then, of course, the whole world started to close down, and the land registry closed. And I thought, shit, I'm going to lose this all. And had it not been for a business bounce back loan, that's really saved my bacon, that allowed me to then buy the materials for my next project, I wouldn't have had any money to have continued. And that would have been 6 months out of my, at least, well, maybe longer now, seeing as the effects of COVID. I wouldn't have been able to have kept going. So what that taught me was not to have all my eggs in one basket, and then to develop different strategies. And in terms of the business bounce back loans, again, touching on what you said about knowing exactly how they work and operate, thankfully I just took one of, £50,000, I think, which is being paid back, and it's fine. But for all those people out there that set up all the limited companies, taking out business bounce back loans that they shouldn't have taken them out, and they're now having to repay them. Okay, it might be at a low interest rate, but it's an awful lot of money when you've not got that money coming in to repay those loans. And then what if they can't afford them? What have they done? Close down the companies, which then might not bode well for them in future business endeavours.
Yeah.
So it's you have to be savvy with all of this.
100%. I mean, it's certainly something in the last kind of especially 6 months to a year that I've definitely known and taken on board is not putting all your eggs in one basket. I mean, just for example, my as I said, my business is predominantly holiday homes, predominantly on the Isle of Bute. But then, and hopefully another COVID never happens, but if I had that business during COVID, I know I would be under right now.
Yeah.
And it also takes me, if you look at what's happened over in the Isle of Arran in the last couple of years, this whole ferry fiasco, if you had a holiday home over, at Isle of Arran, and within that period of time, there's a lot of people who didn't make it, all because of something that wasn't out of their control, relying on a ferry. And if that same thing happens, if you've got that type of business like what I've got over in Isle of Bute, it could be something out with your control that can, as you say, put you under. You can have the best strategy and the best solution, but if you're all your eggs on the one basket, you've potentially got a problem. But just going back to, you mentioned obviously bridging finance. What's your opinion on bridging? I know what I've got my opinion is, and I'll tell you what my opinion is. My opinion is, I think it's a great product, and I think there's people who could be, their business could grow a lot quicker by utilising that product.
Yeah.
But the thing that frustrates me is, especially when you go to networking, and let's say there's like a finance guy up and he's talking about bridging. Generally, the first thing that somebody says at one of these events is, "What's your first thought in bridging?" Everybody else goes in the audience goes, "Oh, it's expensive," and then he says, "Well, let me tell you how it's not." But I think when you start the presentation saying like that, you've just started on a negative, and it's quite hard to bounce up. But I don't think it is expensive, because it's just a cost. And into I suppose your algorithm of doing your numbers. So as long as you've factored that in, it's no, to me, the cost is no different of any other cost in there. Can you afford to have that cost in there? Can you afford to have that product? Yes or no? So I don't really see it as different to any other cost in there. But I mean, what's your take on it?
I would agree with you, absolutely. If you maybe take what bridging finance, the features of a bridging product versus what the alternative might be to fund your project. But what is the alternative? Using private investor finance perhaps, or using cash. And, a private investor is going to want to get a pretty decent return from you anyway, because of the risk that they'll be involved with it. If I'm assuming, if you might be able to give them a first charge on something which gives them a bit more sort of certainty and security, but it still comes at a price.
Yep.
And for me, I've always felt less worried about, maybe worry's not the right way, but less connected when to a bank rather than a private individual. So I do a little bit of private investment with a couple of people, not too many. I like to keep it quite tight, but and I always feel that I'm just, what would happen if they lost their job, or a family member passed away suddenly and they needed their money back, and you might have an agreement with them, but I would feel compelled to give them their money back. Whereas with a bank, maybe not so much. Yeah,
it's interesting you say that, because right now, just now, I've got 2 investors and I've got multiple other mortgages and bridges out. And you're right, I've never thought about that, but I do agree. I've not once has it crossed my mind, right, saying, if something goes wrong, how am I going to pay this bridge back? It's never crossed my mind, but it has. But it's in my mind. I know what date, right, that these 2 guys need paid back at. But it's never once crossed my mind saying, right, well, when that bridge needs back, or what if it goes wrong, or whatever. So I think there is a bit of a less emotional connection there. Plus, as well, I think a lot of, again, back to the social media property education courses, a lot of them are saying a bit like, oh, it's just dead easy. You just get a private investor, right? Now, if you're somebody who, again, we might have different opinions on this, but my opinion is, if you're somebody starting off, right, which is completely fine, because we all started as somewhere. A nobody to start with and inexperienced, and that's completely fine. But if you start off, it's kind of difficult to then get this like random private investor, right? People are saying, I see it on social media, oh, I've got posts on LinkedIn and I get $100,000 off of this guy and all that. But as you say, the element of risk, right? Who's going to really, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but who's going to invest somebody in something who doesn't have a, you've got a very good track record.
Yeah.
So you've got evidence to show, well, why would somebody want to invest in you? But a lot of these education courses are something saying, listen, you'll be able to get a private investor and that'll get you in your first project. But how are you going to get that when you've not got under there's a fine line. But equally the same word, I think investor puts people off. When I say people, I mean, like, let's say people starting out, right? Because an investor can be anybody. It could be a family member who might wants to invest in you. It might be an ex-colleague or whatever it may be. But I think the word investor puts people off because they think like, oh, I don't know. It's like, and again, social media, you see it all like, oh, I'm getting overseas investment and all that crap. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, right? But I could go onto my social media just now and there'll be somebody saying, oh, I just had a Zoom call with a guy in Doha or Abu Dhabi who's going to invest in my project in Maryhill. Do you know what I mean? Like that is what's going on. I'm not saying it's not happening because I know there is people getting it, but like the reality is an investor can be anybody. We can invest in each other.
I'd be worried about the one from Doha.
Exactly. do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
But I think it is good to utilise it. There's a lot of other products out there, private investment being one of them.
Yeah.
Your own money being one of them.
I know,
But
I know.
you know, there's a lot of products, and once you educate yourself on all the different products available, then obviously you're right, that's obviously been a part of your success is by using all the options available to you.
So just sort of keeping it real on the whole sort of bridging finance as well. When it works really well. When it doesn't work, it can be a nightmare. So I had a bridging arrangement where I had 3 properties all involved in the one bridge. And despite saying to the bank via the broker, okay, so what happens if this one sells before property B or property C sells before property A? Because I was managing them, refurbing them all at the same time. And they said, oh, well, you know, the first one's maybe valued at 100 grand, so you'd pay the 100 grand back and so on. I'm like, okay. And then they didn't give me an answer on, you know, one of the scenarios, but I thought, I'm sure that will be okay. And then what happened was when the second property sold and I still had the last one to finalise, they said, oh, can we have all our money back? I said, well, why? I said, it's an arrangement that will last for, it was an 18 months bridge, was the term. And I said, but that's crazy. That will then mean that you've had all your money back. I'll have an unencumbered property, which I think was valued about £250,000. I'll have no capital to continue with the business. But, you know, Mr. Bank, you don't have me as someone who's borrowing money from you, so you're not getting any interest payments from me every month. That doesn't make business sense. Absolutely. Yeah. And they went, well, we just have to rein in our book and we need the money paid back. What? So that is what can happen when you're on a bridging loan, because it's unregulated and they can do whatever they want to do at any given time and change the goalposts on you.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's interesting because you probably answered my question, because I did see something on social media the other day and there was somebody saying that and I didn't know the answer to the question, but I suppose you've now answered that.
I had no idea that they could do that.
Yeah, they definitely can. I won't work with that bank ever again because I've been burned by them.
Yeah.
And even the broker said, look, this doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever either. But obviously they've had changes internally. They have to call in funds. They know that you've got this money and they want it back. So it had a real effect on my business for a good 9 months, I'd say, because I was running on empty for a long time.
Yeah.
And then the house, the third house, the last one, the sale fell through another 3 times. Oh. So just when I thought I was due that money, and this is the unpredictability of property. You don't know when something's going to land, but you've made all these plans. Might even
spent some of it, or
exactly, or offered on something else and need that money to continue, and then the sale falls through again. And even to the point that that this particular one, we had advice from the other side solicitor at 11 o'clock on the Friday morning to say, the offer's coming through. We still don't, because my solicitor said, look, we've not got this offer, Linda. What on earth is going on? I said, no, they're giving me all the signs that obviously everything is okay. They were in rented accommodation in Edinburgh, and it's coming. And then they pulled out at 1 o'clock on the day of completion.
Good Lord.
But
I'm
again,
speechless. I don't even know what to say to that. I've never heard somebody going out that close to the completion.
No, well, I mean, I think it's fair to say. I wish we did have a solicitor in the room right now to ask why they leave the conclusion of the missives to so late in the day, giving people, the opportunity to withdraw, right at the 11th hour. It is so unfair. I still don't get why we have such a restrictive buying and selling process in this country. I mean, you won't go to Marks and Spencer's, for example, and say, see that lovely pair of shoes, I'll come back and give you the money in 8 weeks' time. Yeah, we do it with a house.
I just keep it off, keep them off sale.
Give someone their word that they'll buy a house. But that's what we do with property.
I know, and the more even
Ridiculous.
crazy thing about it is the value of property. It's going to be, you're tying up that asset more than the Marks and Spencer shoes or whatever that version is. There's probably little else that you would tie up so much risk or capital, whatever the situation is, for so long. But I don't know why it's allowed to.
It's allowed to happen with no penalties.
I don't even understand why it has to take that long.
I know.
You know.
I know.
The whole finalising the sale.
I know. Well, I bought one a couple of months ago, about 6 months ago, and the long and the short of it was, went and seen it, everything worked out. The seller was desperate to sell it. The property was vacant. I had the money there, so like it was just like it could have been completed today, right? Yeah. So, but it's the same way I went. This is going to get dragged out. So anyway, I just emailed my solicitor. I've got a really good relationship with her. Thankfully, this would have came across cheeky. Right, I says, listen, here's the details. Go and submit the offer. I just had it all documented, and the moving date's a weekend on Monday, right? That's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I then spoke to the seller. I messaged her, says, listen, just to confirm, did your solicitor get the offer from my solicitor? And she says, yeah. She found it was quite a cheeky email. I says, what was cheeky about it, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm saying there's no reason. It's a bit of paper, right? There is no reason why it can't be a week on Monday. I've got the money. You're ready to sell. They just need to do the wee bit in between, right? There was no home report or anything. I said, I'll just buy it with the home report, right?
Okay, yeah.
So it was
as clean as you possibly could.
It was such a clean deal. It's the cleanest deal you probably ever get involved with, right? Yeah. But it was just a big hoo-ha.
That's probably what confused
them. There was more time about how cheeky my email was. It wasn't cheeky, it was just directive, right? Because then you don't need the back and forward communication if everything's communicated straight up from the word front. But apparently that was too soon.
Wow.
But anyway, it happened.
I think the more people that you get involved in something, the just longer everything is. It's the same with the portfolio that we bought. We had discussions with the seller back in, must have been February of last year, and they just concluded in December.
Aye, I remember hearing that.
And 5 properties, how hard is it? How difficult could that be? But again, you've got the seller, you've got the seller solicitors, you've got our solicitors, you've got the bridging solicitors. It was just an absolute nightmare.
Well, see on that deal, I took a bit of advice from, I don't know if you might know him, Mustang. He's coming on the podcast a few weeks ago. He owns CEO Boss Pizza. He's scaling this big pizza business, right? Don't know if you see him on social media. He just got social media content creator of the year for Scotland. So like really, actually, I don't know the guy. I've just reached out to him on social media, but I've seen one of his videos, right? And so he's got a few different businesses, properties, his background business, and apparently owns kind of half Almada Street in Hamilton, and he wanted to buy this one that was in the middle. So if you look at his video, it says he just got, again, he was obviously got a good relationship with his solicitor. He called him up and says, listen, I've just bought it, the money's in the bank, right? And I want to conclude tomorrow. And he's just tomorrow. And he went, and his exact words went, it's a fucking bit of paper, right? Now, for anybody that's listening, I'm not saying buy a property doesn't move that quick, right? But see if it's a clean deal, there is no reason why. There's no reason why. But listen, that's out of our control. We'll just need to accept of how we are just now. Right,
so one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, Linda, was you're known for exceeding your ceiling prices on your properties, and we want to know what your secret is.
Okay.
What's the secret? What's the secret sauce?
Secret sauce. Oh, okay, might cost you. So I think it comes down to the design and the creativity and putting the thought into the property at the early stages and actually working out how you're going to transform it into a special space that is a home for someone.
Right.
That you would be quite happy to live in yourself. And model your project on how the Taylor Wimpeys or the Persimmons, showcase their home and present it to the best standard that you can possibly do.
I take it some of that process comes in even before, like even at the viewing stages when you've went to buy the property to do the flip, you're already thinking along those lines. So location, the area.
I think the most important one is adding value where you can add that value very in a cost-effective way. And a lot of things don't cost, or to put it a different way, you might strike it lucky and come across a project where those big ticket items are already in good working order, but on the face of it, it's not presenting well. So, for example, it might have a new boiler, or the windows and doors might all be in good condition. They might just need a good clean, or the electrics have all been upgraded. And if you've got those big ticket items, then you can then divert your budget into those other areas that don't cost as much. Where property is concerned, people buy an emotion, and always sort of strikes me that people do that, but it's just, I think it's because it is that emotional purchase where people can see themselves living in somewhere, and it's giving them the lifestyle that they desire. So if you can tap into that, then I think you can do quite well, and approach it that way rather than how can you save money when you do your project. I mean, still, what with all the content that you see on social media nowadays, and I think what it's meant is people still have to lift their game in a lot of ways, so that, because people are quite judgmental, they'll look at all these nice pictures and say, well, why can't my house be like that they want to buy? So that's what you're up against, right?
Especially the people who are going to take the keys off of you in day one. In the world we're in just now, they're probably going to get a picture in the property with their partner with the keys and all that, and I think in the background, what does your property look like?
Exactly. So being able to have that sort of foresight early on is good. I've just forgotten what I was going to say there.
So I do it all the time. When I've been sitting there thinking to myself, there's about 20 questions I want to ask you, and I'm thinking to myself, what was that question I was going to ask you?
So one of the things that still annoys me actually is, and this is maybe, I'm probably being really judgmental here, and I don't like being that way, but
it's human nature, don't worry.
I do the same thing when I look at other people's holiday homes as well, because I think to myself, you've just splashed that with everything for IKEA.
Do you? That makes me feel much better then.
I don't want to sound critical, because again, I don't want to be that guy, but I think to myself, like, especially if you're looking at the holiday home basis, that would be like your version of the Rightmove selling it, then it's like the picture, right?
Up the spec.
Like the spec needs to like stand out. Certainly all mine, I always think to myself, in the holiday homes is like, it needs to create a way, it's the home from home experience that like, that you're taking your home, and there's nothing in this place that your home doesn't have. I think you're going back to, like, I remember, I know I see before you were talking about the quality of the photography on Rightmove versus the competition, then you would think the kind of basic psychology of sales, everybody would be doing that, but not everybody is. Not everybody is doing that.
That's a fair point actually, and I think it's about creating something that will stand you apart from everybody else. And when I look at some pictures that people might post on Facebook where they show before and afters, I'm like, your after is just as bad as your before picture. You haven't done anything that makes it look appealing. You've used maybe boring grey, cheap wet wall in a bathroom, and if you just been a little bit more creative when it comes to using colour or different tiles, put some LED lights in there. It's not going to cost you anything. Just get your Sparky to do it, and all these little tweaks, I think, will give you something that will look much better, which in turn then gets you a higher valuation on your home report, because again, the surveyors are human too. Like they will, if they see something that looks amazing, it's human nature to maybe want to put a higher value on it. And go back to your service accommodation as well, it's very much about providing what your target market's looking for. So when you're saying in the service accommodation sector, I would think that it's very much it's more hospitality, isn't it, than it is sort of
it's transitioned that way now.
So people then expect them, when they go and stay somewhere, for it to be immaculately clean, have all those maybe features that they might not even get at home. I've sort of gone back to sort of pivoting, I guess, after COVID and looking at different strategies that I can have in place as well. One of the other income streams that I've developed too is getting into that service accommodation space. Steep learning curve, I have to say, because again, more hospitality than other rentals or other
it's not as clean.
No, good money, more, but it's hard work. It
comes at a cost.
It does come at a cost, So I'd sort of pivoted into sort of service accommodation, and I do a little bit in the commercial space now as well, and mainly because the buying commercial buildings don't attract the additional dwelling supplement.
Yeah.
And don't come, I believe, with a lot of the hassles that residential properties come with.
Yeah.
And I like to be creative. I've never thought of myself as a creative person, but I do enjoy that. And when it comes to commercial buildings, you can sort of flex your arm a wee bit more when it comes to redesign and reconfiguring commercial spaces.
You've probably got an advantage there over the big players in the commercial space, because I don't imagine they would be thinking along the same lines of creativity.
No.
A lot of these big massive corporations who are in commercial, half of them probably don't even know what properties they're own. These companies are that big, so I don't think they'll be thinking along the lines of creativity and how to move the space.
Quite
making it looking desirable for different niche markets.
Yes. Yeah.
It'll be a bog standard refurb to a one size fits all of almost,
like the basic IKEA refurb.
That's
their version of the basic refurb. So listen, I think we could probably go on all day. I've taken quite a lot from you, certainly, but where did the education side come in then? So what made you? I know, like, within what I've just discussed, it's kind of all about helping the end user. And see what you're doing, your flips and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. Where did the education part come in?
So I looked at my own journey and where I come from. And when I started, there was no Instagram. There might have been Facebook. Within the property space, there wasn't as much, I guess, visual content out there as what there is today. And I think there has been a sort of prolific increase in the number of property training companies out there and people who, dare I say, have maybe only been doing it a year or two, and then before you know it, they're teaching other people how to do it. And I'm an honest person, and I want everyone to do really well. And I think there are a lot of people out there who don't want to do that necessarily, and maybe just focus on the property training as an income stream. But for me, if I can, yes, it's another income stream for me, but I genuinely think that I've got a lot to share, but in a very sort of no-nonsense, down-to-earth way of doing things, as someone who has walked the walk.
Walk the walk, exactly. Yeah.
So, I do a little bit of that now. So, and that's good.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
it's sometimes I do. It's sometimes a challenge fitting it into everything else I do. So what I've done actually is I'm moving away from a lot of the in-person stuff that I do. So I've developed a digital piece. So I have lots of online content that's just about to be launched into a training package. So it basically has it showcases what I've done, how I do it, and everything I've learned over the past 10 years, so that people could do what I do and, not waste time and make the mistakes and hopefully be really successful when it comes to property. Yeah,
I think the digital product's a really good product, because as much as I do like face-to-face interaction, but when you've had the conversation, it's done. At least with the digital product, there's a record and people can go back at their own time, their own leisure, because it's all very well going to a training course for a day, a week, a month, whatever it may be, but at the time, the actual journey starts at the end of that,
Yes,
and if you've got something to reflect back on, whether it's a digital working journey or whatever it may be, then that's always...
that would definitely be beneficial, I think, because you do forget little bits, and to have a recap's essential.
Yeah,
especially for my age group.
100%. Well, listen, I think we could probably sit here all day, right? I think we've taken off of your time. Listen, I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for coming.
I enjoyed it.
I really appreciate it. It's been, certainly for me, I've taken a lot from it, as I did when I seen you speaking at the auction house last year. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Perfect. Listen,
thanks so much.
Okay. Bye.
So if you have found what's been discussed today valuable and would like to learn a wee bit more about Linda, view her latest projects, and maybe how she could help you on your own property journey through her workshops, then we will put all Linda's social handles on the show notes below.